Happening, good people. Hope you're enjoying your summer. Trying to beat the heat here because it's very, very humid. So I'm in the basement. So I'm not recording this particular video off my desktop like I do. It's doing this on my iPad. So it'd be interesting to see how it turns out. And I want to talk about Stranger Things. I saw the third season, which was a chore to get through. But I do have to keep abreast, or try my best just to keep a little bit of an eye on what the majority of the folks are being programmed with. And there's probably no better example than Stranger Things. It's a huge, huge show. If you're not familiar with the show, it's a show that takes place in the United States in the 1980s and has an extremely strong nostalgic sort of 80s theme with the music and the clothing and everything that goes with it. And it's kind of a mixture of what I would describe as Spielberg type, Close Encounters of the Third Kind meets Stephen King, typical sort of Stephen King, New England, spooky town type, and the kids, the Goonies, throw the Goonies in there as well. So if you haven't seen it, it's okay. You don't need to see it. You can just listen to this video, and we're going to talk about just one thing today. This is only going to be a video on one thing. I could talk about all the Saturn symbolism, the Wormar Boris, and Never Ending Story, and a million other things. The rainbow, of course, which is everywhere in this show. It's almost impossible to avoid. In fact, the rainbow is almost in every scene in the movie, and one of the main characters is constantly wearing a rainbow shirt throughout the whole season. Now, I want to just focus on product placement. And now, if you don't know who makes the show, it's important to know that. Who writes the show, who most of the show actors are, and most of the people that are involved with anything to do with the production and the writing of the show are the people you're not allowed to talk about. So it's very important to understand that. So this show is like all the other movies and shows, Game of Thrones, Star Wars, Star Trek, all these things are all about them. So this show is no exception. In fact, it's probably the most obvious example of how it works. Now, what I'm going to say about Stranger Things is that it's very well done, and it is done in a way that it appeals to both the youth and the people that would have grown up in the 80s. So I'm somebody that was a kid in the 80s, so I remember the 80s really well. So it's one of those shows that it's meant to appeal to people like me and many other people that are out there, sort of thing. And so the product placement to me is astonishing. I've never seen so much in my life. I wish I had taken screenshots throughout the viewing of this, and I didn't. So, but I just did a search here on Scroogle here for product placement, and like I've never seen so much in my life ever. I mean, it's never as blatant and as obvious. Maybe this is typical for shows today, but in almost every scene there's at least something like a Coca-Cola or a Cocoa Puffs, Lucky Charms, Skittles, Burger Thing. It's like every scene, Slurpees, 7-Elevens, Doritos. It's just ubiquitous through the entire sort of season. And I haven't watched the other seasons since I saw them when they initially came out. So, I can't really do a comparison because I can't quite remember the amount of product placement. But it's everywhere. It's almost in every scene. And the numbers and the symbols are all there. So, I mean, especially the 9/11 symbolism and all that. It's just chock through the entire... There's a lot of connections to Back to the Future. In fact, Back to the Future is featured prominently, as many other movies from the 80s, especially that period. They really do spend a lot of time in movie theaters, and so you're constantly seeing the movies that probably were out all at the same time at that point in time as say Back to the Future, which I'd say 1985 or something like that, 86, I don't know, around that era. And a lot of your entertainment is mirroring... It's not entertainment, of course, you know that, right? You're here, your entertainment is just programming. It's mind control. That's what it is. It can be entertaining, but it's mind control. You should be under no illusions about that. And if you are under illusions, you are not at all equipped to be able to watch this stuff, because you are in complete mind control if you can't recognize that. I can't stress that enough. Okay, so, but the product placement here is over the top, and it's just throughout the entire, every episode. There's scarcely a scene where there isn't several of these products, or at least one of these products being featured prominently. Now, the new Coke gets a new life, and, you know, reality mimics art, or vice versa, or one and the same in many ways, where now new Coke is getting new life. Apparently, I've heard it, you know, that they're going to re-release it, you know, and that's all part of their machinations. So new Coke was one of those things that came out and was instantly rejected by the population, because there was really no need for a new Coke, because the old Coke, that's what people bought Coke for. And whether new Coke was a way of trying to get people to drink something sweeter, which that would have been my theory, is sweeter, and obviously the genetically modified corn sugar, high fructose corn sugar that's in there and all that, that all of our food has gotten sweeter and sweeter and sweeter and sweeter and saltier and more laced with chemicals, and tasty, crunchy, tasty. This is all what YouTube is, nerdy nummies 101 type things, where they're making things that look irresistible, that you just want to pop in your mouth, much like Cheetos and all the things that are featured in this show. Now, what I'll say about this show is there's never a moment in the show where people are eating real food. They're never eating real food. They're always eating takeout all the time. All the time. Nobody's making a meal. Nobody's eating a sandwich. Everyone is eating takeout all the time. It's extremely disturbing. This is not a reflection of what the 80s was like. In fact, people eat way more junk food now than they did back then. In fact, the obesity is far worse now than it was back then, without a doubt. Ask anyone that's been around long enough, and they'll tell you how much things have changed over the past 30 years. So this is a mirror reflection of how much has changed. This guy here would be abnormally large that you see on the screen at the moment. But you see the Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? Instead of, they're having, this is like a Thanksgiving dinner, if I'm not mistaken, or whatever. I mean, a family dinner sort of thing. So there you see the new Coke with the L11, of course. And you know that whole character, Millie Bobby Brown, that's a whole psyop within a psyop, you know, sort of thing. I won't get into that. But the amount of product placement in here, the gap is constantly mentioned as well. In fact, one of the ways for them to escape the monster was to go through the gap in the third season. I don't care if I'm giving anything away. I don't give a damn. All right. So if you're worried about spoilers, I mean, just you're on the wrong channel. Here is L with the old Coke crushing it. So you see that's the old Coke, which is symbolic because this was in the first season, judging by the look of 11 here. And she is, of course, a telepath who can alter physical reality with her mind. She can lift up cars and crush people and fight monsters with her mind, which is a lot to do with the programming of the youth, you know, conditioning the youth into this narcissistic selfie sort of, you're invincible, you're the greatest thing ever, you are amazing just because you're you. And that's not true at all, of course. That's far from truth. Of course, hot dog on a stick is constantly, I've seen this a gazillion times on the show, in the mall, all the businesses, the junk food places, and the businesses as well, because as I mentioned, there's Gap and there's all these other Sephora and all these other stores that are featured prominently. But hot dog on a stick here, of course, with the rainbow symbolism and hot dog on a stick, and they show this with one of the Jewish characters. They're all Jews playing in the show pretty much, but one of the Jewish characters is getting hot dogs on a stick while his buddy gets killed or whatever, which is a clear sort of homosexual sort of innuendo scene that they throw in. And the show is chock full, and just in case you're wondering, because this video is not about the LGBTQ WXYZ, this is about the product placement and what I believe it's about. I haven't got to that part yet, but I will definitely do a whole other video on the rainbow, because that is probably even more prevalent than anything else. So understanding that the product placement is there everywhere, you can come in as a cynic and you can say, that's the way the world works. These shows are very expensive to produce, so therefore they're going to try and get as much money as possible. Yeah, I hear all that, but I say bullshit. I say that what we have in this show is programming of the masses. The programming of the masses into what? Well, amongst many other things. Let's stay away from all the LGBT, PQNSW, XYZ stuff. Let's not even talk about the narcissism, the selfie, the everything else that they're doing with the show. Let's just talk about the programming of the masses into consuming junk food. And let's say bluntly, let's just say this. I'll say this right out, without hesitation, that the show is trying to promote people to eat as much junk food as possible, just like YouTube is doing with all its celebrities. So all the celebrities on YouTube, Shane Yaw, aka Shane Dawson, Colleen Ballinger, Growy Josefa, all these characters, all of them are always featuring products and junk food. They're always trying everything on the menu. Jeffree Star, trying what the person before you ate. Ordering everything on the menu. This is all part of your mind control and your body control, because they want to control your bodies. They want you're cattle. That's what you are. Let's be honest. A spade, YouTube community. We're cattle. And they want us to eat their fake food. And this food is all awful. It is all awful. None of it's good for you. If you subsisted off a diet, if you ate like the people on Stranger Things ate, you would be much like the Morgan Spurlock character in the movie, or the biography, if you will, which was Super Size Me, in which the guy ate nothing but McDonald's for a month, and he put on like 30-40 pounds, and his liver was failing, and he was basically going to die if he didn't stop. But that's all he ate. He subsisted off McDonald's. I think most people probably know that movie. And yeah, you say, well, it's part of their games, but the reality is, if you ate what the cop, the big cop guy eats, the fat cop on the show, if you ate what Winona Ryder and the other characters eat, the kids, the four main boy characters eat, you would be dead within not too long, because you could not subsist off that type of food. But watching the show, what happens is, and I have to state this, okay, I tried to make it through a show called Mad Men. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, and I will definitely cover Mad Men in the future. I never got through the entire thing because, for one, the heavy feminist the white male stereotyping and all that, put all that aside, and the LGBT stuff, but the alcoholism that's promoted in the show. So the show, there's rarely a moment in the show, Mad Men, whenever the men are being featured, every time they walk into a room, the first thing they do is they pour themselves a drink. Always. And the Canadian Club whiskey and whatever other types of alcoholic beverages are figured prominently in your face. Now, it should be illegal, because you shouldn't promote alcohol consumption. I mean, it used to be that you wouldn't get away with that. You would have to, pretend that you're drinking something more wholesome or whatever. But now that's all gone. It's free reign. And that's why you're watching sports. If you think about it too, like, the cigarette companies are not allowed to sponsor. They're not allowed to advertise, because cigarettes are bad for you. They kill you. Well, alcohol kills you probably just as bad, if not worse, than cigarettes. And has destroyed gazillions of lives. But what do you get at every commercial break when you're watching sports? Miller, it's time for Miller. Bud Light, right? You gotta have a Bud Light. Canadian Club whiskey, right? The wiser guys, the clapping and stuff like that. Like the alcohol beverages. Are you a captain? Jack Daniels, right? All these commercials advertising alcohol consumption, along with the junk food and everything else interspliced. You got the car commercials and shit. But the reality is that you watch a show like Mad Men, there's a much greater chance that you're going to want to drink. And it may not happen right away. It may take a few episodes. But if you keep watching it, it's very likely that you will emulate the behavior, because this is what television does. So back in the 1950s, they used to do these experiments in movie theaters in which they would every 30th frame or something, they did this experiment. It became very controversial, but it showed that it clearly worked, which was like every 30 frames or so they would put a Coca-Cola or a popcorn sort of image, and it was too fast for your brain or your eyeballs to pick out consciously. Like your brain and your eyes couldn't see it. It would come so quick. The frame would pass by, but your brain would subconsciously take it in. And so what they found when they did that was that the sales for the Coke and the popcorn went through the roof. So they're not supposed to be doing that type of stuff, but what they do instead is they're constantly showing people drinking all the time. And the cop is always drinking beers, right? The kids are always eating, especially the cereals, the Cocoa Puffs, the Lucky Charms. They're always in every frame. Almost in this show, you'll see this product placement. It's astonishing how much of it is. There's the girl I telling you. There's a character with the rainbow, and you got the kids wearing. The kid on the left has one of the LGBT PQNSW XYZ flag symbols on his shirt. I'm not sure which one it is, so I won't take that further, but that's just an example of how these symbols are all over the show. But yeah, the reality is that these shows are 100%. You got the 88 here, of course, which is very symbolic, but the Eggo waffles is one of the big themes from the first show. The character 11 was obsessed with Eggo waffles. So Eggo waffles are terrible. I mean, they're synthetic fake food full of genetically modified and sugar and all this crap. Not even sugar, high fructose corn sugar and all this crap. And then what do you put on it? You put on the fake synthetic syrup. Now, what it was back in the 80s compared to what it is now, there's no comparison, because everything's changed since then with the revolving door with Monsanto and the genetically modified foods and all that. These aren't the same Eggos that your father had or your mother had, sort of thing. These Eggos have changed radically, just the ingredients, because of how the FDA and the food body regulation sort of governmental organizations have had this revolving door with our controllers and coming in with all these fake foods. So that's a really great example of product placement and how ubiquitous it is in the show, how often these characters are displaying this. It's hard to even, like, because there's not enough images here really to even give near justice to how much product placement is. As I said, the cop character here is always eating junk food, always. He never eats anything healthy. You never see him eating an apple or, a vegetable or something like that. He's just eating burgers. He's eating beef jerky and stuff like that. Even when so there's a scene in the third season where they've been out in the woods. They've been running presumably all afternoon because their car broke down. They were being chased by some Russian sort of Terminator type character. And so presumably they've been running all day, and they find a 7-Eleven. And so you'd imagine they're very hungry, and they're very thirsty. So what do they do when they go in the I'm going to see if I can find it here. They go into the I believe it's 7, it's spelt 7-Eleven, right? Like that would be the way to search for it. But they go into the 7-Eleven here, and I can't see the images here, but they go into 7-Eleven, and the character, the cop, puts a whole bunch of horrible junk food onto the table. Horrible junk food, like these pink fluffy sort of donut-like cakes and Coca-Colas and shit like that. Like, they're not even drinking, and when they get into they're chugging down Coca-Colas and Orange Crushes and whatever, right? Orange Crush, of course, coming in as symbolism for the LGBT in The Walking Dead as well. That's a whole nother thing. But the example of that, being that, here are these people. If you were, say, really, really thirsty, really, really hungry, you'd eat anything, but wouldn't you go for something healthy? Well, there is nothing healthy at a 7-Eleven, is there? There might be. I mean, is there? I don't know, because I'm in Rainbow Unicorn Land. We don't have 7-Eleven up here. We have something in Quebecistan called Provisoire, which is the equivalent. And it's just, basic beer, beer and wine with, usually there's a gas station involved. But if there's not, it's beer and wine, bread, but, fake bread, and junk food, basically. Slurpees and slushies and candy bars and all that. And, whatever, right? Like, I'm not here to say those things shouldn't exist, but I'm saying that is a telltale sort of sign of a civilization that you're in, right? When you walk into what would be potentially the only store open at many times of the day, or at certain times of the day, you're talking about 24/7, stuff like that, or after hours, so after 7 p.m., 6 p.m., 5 p.m., when a lot of businesses close. These are the only places that are open. After grocery stores have closed down, 9 p.m., 10 p.m., right? Unless you're in an affluent sort of neighborhood, chances are you don't have that option. You go into one of these places and it's just junk food, like wall to ceiling, just the whole thing is junk food. Now you could find less, better options in there. Potentially they might have fruit. Potentially, they might have areas where there's canned food and stuff like that, or you could find something that wouldn't be so toxic, but this is the reality, right? And this is not by accident. This is what our controllers are using to control us. So the food is being used to control us in a huge way. Huge way. The foods are used over and over again to control us and to addict us. They want to addict us to the sweets and the salts, and they want us to embrace their chemical sort of concoctions and make them part of our culture. And that's what it is. It's Homer Simpson culture. They want you to be a Homer Simpson. The interesting thing about Homer Simpson, if you look at where Homer Simpson comes from, it's from a book called A Day of the Locust, which was made into a film in the 1970s. You might want to check that out if you get a chance. Donald Sutherland actually plays the character of Homer Simpson. And Homer Simpson is a white male, and he is a complete moron. He's a complete loser, complete idiot. He has no clue about anything. And he's in Hollywood, and he's just been fortunate enough to be in a wealthy sort of family. But he is like the sort of epitome of an idiotic sort of character. So probably the most iconic and beloved character in all of television, you could argue, is Homer Simpson. That's not by accident. That's because they want you to adopt those lovable sort of idiotic Homerisms. Who does The Simpsons? Who makes your entertainment? It says so much. So this is a show that is programming people and using nostalgia and all kinds of methods to program people into the type of diet that would destroy you. Just that alone. See, we're not talking about all the other things. We're not talking about the Saturn sort of symbolism and all these other things, the 88s, the rainbow unicorn symbolism that's everywhere. We're not even talking about the genders and all that, the lesbian characters. Like in this third season, for instance, I can give you a great example of how they're fucking with everyone, is that they had two significant characters, two main characters. In fact, we'll show them here and we'll spoil it. I saw them before, so I know they're kicking around. They're two of the main characters on the show. They have the two girls with the rainbow shirts on. And this is insinuating, of course, a lesbian sort of a love affair blossoming between these two girls. And this goes on for the whole season. But there's two other characters in here. The two here that you see on the left, well, the center and the left. The guy, the taller guy, and the girl that's on the left there. And they have a story arc between them in which they start off as kind of like hating having to work with each other, and then over time, as they explore the mysteries and solve the riddles and put clues together to find out what's going on, they develop a relationship. And the guy on the right thinks for sure 100% that they're in love with each other, but they just won't admit it. And it's a typical sort of thing. So watching that, and I got to the point where it was almost at the end of the season. I think it was like 8th or 9th episode, and these two finally had that moment where they were able to express their feelings for each other. And the guy who is supposed to be kind of above the girl and the hot guy and all that, and the guy that a lot of the girls want, basically comes out and says, I'm actually in love with you. And then she has to tell him, guess what? I'm actually a lesbian. Can't make this shit up. You can't make this shit up. And of course he accepts it fully. But that's just an example of how much other sort of programming is in this show. And what would I say to folks about this is that your entertainment is extremely evil. Extremely evil. And you have to be very, very careful with your consumption of it. You really, really do. Just like you have to be extremely careful of your consumption of their fake foods. You have to either eliminate or have as little as possible. Be able to not be engineered into what they want to engineer you into. And what I say about these foods is that if they become commonplace, if instead of going for a glass of water, you're just opening a can of Coke, that's a really bad situation to be in. But that is that undoubtedly would be something that would happen to people that would watch this type of programming on a daily basis. If you're watching the Ellen DeGenerate, if you're watching all the celebrities, if you're watching the Nerdy Nummies on YouTube, the Tyler Oakleys, all these characters, Shane Dawson, they're always Trisha Paytas, they're always doing mukbanging, they're always trying everything on the menu, they're always eating the junk food, the Try Guys. And try everything. Try everything on the menu. And this all ties into the fake foods and the great podcast I did a couple weeks ago with Camille, dealing with how, they want everybody to try everything because they're coming out with all these new types of synthetic meats that they're growing in labs, right? And so all of our food is changing radically, which means that we're all changing radically as a result, or all of us that are consuming this stuff, especially those who consume the most of it. And you can see it manifests clearly. Everyone must see this. The obesity, over a third of the population is obese, not overweight, obese. This 30 years ago, it might have been 1%, might have been at tops. 30 years, and now it's a third of the population. You'd say half the population is easily overweight. And then talk about the cancers. Why are there so many cancers? Why is there always a ribbon and always a cancer this, cancer day, cancer week, cancer month, just like there's the LGBT XYZ day? It's because the cattle is being made sick, and then the sickness is being normalized, just like the mental illness, the depression. The cattle is being made depressed, and then it's being told it's okay to be depressed. Enjoy your unhappy meals. Take pride in your depression. They're socially engineering all of us, is what I'm saying. We are living in a Black Mirror episode, and this one's much darker because it's reality. Now you can say, a lot of the Black Mirror is a reflection or a direct reflection or showing you exactly what's to come. Yeah, exactly. It's softening the blow. It's called predictive programming. The reality is this shit is real. It's happening. It's all around us. And all you have to do is pay attention to it. So I wanted to bring this, it's just this theme, just this one theme, this junk food theme that is so over the top and in your face in all of Stranger Things. The whole thing is just littered with junk food. And I'm talking the worst offenders. The chips, the Cheetos, the Doritos, right? The Skittles, Taste the Rainbow, the chocolate bars, everything. It's all over. And of course, Burger Thing being one of the biggest. And just like you see here, where the girls are spying on somebody, what is the biggest thing in the picture that you see? This is an actual sort of frame from the show. Well, it's the Burger King, right? Because, you know, and the cynics come in and say, well, Burger King pays and whatever. Yeah, whatever. They want you to eat this shit. They want you to be this shit. They want you to think that the coolest people, the people that you're obsessed with, the people that you love to watch them so much. You love to watch them. They are all consuming this stuff. And they're acting like it's so cool to do it. It's important to know that. Just like it's important to know where all these shows come from. All these shows are about. It's important to understand that. It's really important to understand that. Your Star Wars is not Star Wars. It's not your father's or your mother's Star Wars. Right? It's not at all. Even back then, it was something that you didn't know it was, but nothing near what it is now. These shows are socially conditioning the masses and programming everyone into a certain Homer Simpson style lifestyle. And that is very, very unhealthy. It's very, very bad for everyone. And I can tell you without a doubt, I can feel it. Like when I watch these shows, I want to eat junk food. I do. Because yeah, junk food, they know how to chemically make it so that you want it. Like, you're not wanting these things because they taste awful, even though they're awful for you. You're wanting them because the chemicals are inside them are hitting those, you know, the risk reward in your brain. Your brain is saying, I want that. I want that. Your body is telling you to get it. And you have to fight. You have to, no, I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to go to that drive-thru. I'm not going to buy those. I'm not going to go down that aisle at the grocery store. Like, you have to fight that every time. All of us do. The worst food is the cheapest food. I mean, come on, 24 Cokes for $5.99? $6 for 24 Cokes? What else can you get 6 of for? You can't even get the bottled water most time for that price. And it's just water they're stealing anyways and putting in a, you know, it's not their water. You know, nobody should be allowed to sell water. Nobody. Absolutely not. There should be water fountains everywhere with clean, non-fluoridated water. But that's another thing that they're doing. Just like the cell phones. You know, just another way of getting rid of all the payphones. Well, putting water bottles in stores everywhere and water bottle machines, getting people, and then all of a sudden you don't have the water fountains in the parks and stuff like that, which is just terrible. But it's just an examples of the mass social conditioning that everyone is being programmed into. And it's very dangerous. And people that watch these shows, they don't understand what these shows are doing to them. They have no clue. No clue. And then they can't see anything wrong. They don't understand how evil this shit is. These shows aren't about, you know, I mean, they're... What's the point of even saying what they're about? I already showed you what they're about. You know what they're about. Right? You know who's behind it. You know what they're trying to do. So, it's up to us to try to reach the masses and just try to inform them and say, hey, you know, maybe you're overweight or you're obese because you're watching television. In fact, so many people would be obese because of that. And when I see kids and the normalization of obesity in kids, that is just criminal in my opinion. It's just, I see so many obese kids these days. I'm just like, how the hell could you let your kid get like that? How? How could you do this to your kid? How would you allow that? There's no way. That's not proper parenting. There's no way your kid should be fat. No way. Unless it's some sort of genetic disease or something. That's something that they can't control. There's no way any kid should be overweight. No way. No way. I was skinny as a rake growing up because I had a good metabolism, but I was always outside, always playing sports, always, bicycle ramps, skateboard ramps, doing, just outside in the sun, in the snow, just building things, going places, getting in trouble, whatever, just doing things. There's no way any kid should be fat. There's no way. No way. But we've normalized it. So we have kids that are growing up and they don't even have a chance because they're obese by the time they get in their teens or even sooner. And then they just want the state to come in. I mean, the state's going to tell them, hey, we can't, you're fat shaming. You're perfectly wonderful. No, you're not. You're not. I mean, if you're obese, you're not wonderful at all. You're deathly ill. You are 1 foot in the grave. You're going to die much sooner. You're going to die much, much sooner. And that's terrible. Nobody should be in that situation. So really, really crazy shit. Anyway, so I wanted to ask you all you good folks out there that have watched the show. I'm sure a lot of you have. And how much of it did you see? How much product placement did you see in this show? How much junk food? This is a perfect example. Like every scene with the kids is like this. It's just, you see the Gatorade, the Crush, right? The soft drinks, the chips, the Doritos, right? All there. This is, every scene is like this. Every scene. Right? Every scene is like this. Who's responsible? Who's making these shows? Don't they care about kids? It wasn't like that when I was a kid. When I was the age of these kids, there's no way that we had all this junk food around. No way. Like, we had some, right? But I mean, come on, seriously? And if you notice the 4 kids, you almost never see the interactions with the parents. The parents are almost like the wah, 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 wah on the peanuts. Like, they're never there. And the kids are just eating junk food all the time. And it's like, well, wait a second. Parents would be the first ones. In my day, parents would be like, what are you doing? Oh, you can't have that. No. You've had enough junk food. How many? Do you already have a can of Coke today? You're not having another one, Or don't have a can of Coke, like, period. So, this is not accidental at all. And it's evil. I'm calling it out, YouTube community. It's evil. I mean, I believe if you're going to make a show, you be realistic. But that's not realistic. That's not the way people were eating back then. I mean, some people do. And those people turn out to be horribly obese. You couldn't be a kid and eat nothing but this shit and have a chance at being normal. No chance. It would not happen. So, whew. Anyways, I had to get that off my chest. There's a lot more I want to say about the show. A lot more. But I was just so astonished. I was gobsmacked by how much product placement and how much junk food was prevalent in the 3rd season. I mean, it was awful. I did not enjoy watching it. I did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy... I mean, if they just kept it to the monsters and whatever, maybe then, But I found the agendas are so prevalent. They're so, just in every scene and what they're doing. Just like you see on the screen here with the gender shirts that the kids are wearing, mixed with all the, normalizing the consumption of all the Hollywood and the obsession with movies, the obsession with all the junk food, all coming together. That's what these shows do. Just like the Lego, used to have the Lego where it was all, just think about that, great analogy to what your entertainment is. Used to be, you get a kid a box of Lego, and it's just like, here's a rectangle, and there's, You know, there's cubes and there's there's some wheels, and it's up to your imagination what you make. Lego's nothing like that anymore. It's all, everything is, you can't make it any other way. It's Batman's car. It's, you know, it's Iron Man's suit. It's Star Wars, right? It's there's no imagination. Your imagination has been destroyed. It's been replaced by your programming, and this is very, very bad for humanity. Very bad. I can't stress it enough. What I see, and I'll say it bluntly, folks, is it's we're being treated like we are cattle, except we don't even do to cattle, or though maybe we do to a certain extent. You know, I don't know how, you know, how awful it gets for cattle. Obviously, we're feeding cattle all kinds of crap, and then we're eating the cattle. So that's something to take into consideration big time. But we don't even treat cattle to this extent that we're being treated, right? The cattle aren't being subjected to this constant programming, this constant gender confusion, this constant sort of narcissism, this constant total dismantling, deconstruction of the family. Really, really, really nasty shit going on in this show. And had to call it out. Anyways, so hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you got something out of it. I really think it's important to talk about this, and I would really like to hear your thoughts on this. I think I'll be doing Jeff C. and Friends probably next week, probably like a Monday or Tuesday. I'll let people know. I won't be able to do it tomorrow. But yeah, I've got it lined up, so you know it's definitely gonna happen. And again, thanks to everyone that supports me. It means the world to me, especially if you can support me on Patreon. I only mention it at the end because it's not about money, but money, of course, you need it to survive. So it means so much to me to be able to get something back to help pay some bills. So if you want to support my work, follow the link in the description to my Patreon. Sign up for as little as $2 a month. That's less than a cup of coffee, and a lot healthier. So if you can, yeah, give me a thumbs up, hit the like, hit the bell, make sure you're subbed to the other two channels, Jeff Censored Live and Supreme Lord Commander. Even though there's not a lot of content there, it's always kind of like backup, you know, because I'm always losing my channels. So yeah, give your thoughts, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know what you think about all this. And how do you talk to your family? How do you talk to your friends and coworkers and whatnot about what they're doing? And what do you notice? Do you notice that people that watch these shows eat a lot more junk food? Do you notice that? Do you notice, do people, when they're eating this food, do you think that they're ever thinking about what they're putting in their bodies? Do you think that they just live in such a low state, a low frequency, that they can't really feel what it's like to be healthy, so they don't really care, or they've just become apathetic? Those are really serious questions, because it's working. Whatever they're doing, it's working. You know, if a third of the population is morbidly sick, I'm talking about people that are obese, and never ever do I ever want to make obese people feel bad about their predicament. I feel nothing but sympathy, but you know, you have to pull yourself out at some time. But you know, that's why I make videos like this, because I care about humanity a lot, and I don't want to see people getting sick and dying. I don't want to see them not understanding what this shit is doing to them. So if you can, speak up, stand up, get your voice being heard. Share this video, share this information, share the love. Anyways, much love to you all, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good one.